Hello, Deputy Mayor Morley. We're just going to do a mic check. We'll check again. Okay, you can hear us. Can we test you?
Yep, can you hear me okay?
We can hear you. Okay. We are still waiting on Councillor Chang. Let me just check in with her. Okay, we'll get started while we're waiting for Councillor Chang. We do have quorum and a long intro. Good evening. I'm Deputy Mayor Jennifer McKelvey, Chair of the Budget Subcommittee. We have quorum, so I'd like to now call this meeting to order. Welcome, everyone. Although we may be meeting in different locations today, the Budget Committee would like to acknowledge that the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. Today's meeting is being held in council chambers at the Scarborough Civic Centre. Members of the public who are registered to speak are in the room with us and also on video conference. This meeting is being live streamed and you can find the link on toronto.ca/council. Are there any declarations of interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? Seeing none, we will move on. This is a subcommittee of the Budget Committee, and Deputy Mayor Amber Morley, Councillor Chang, and myself are members of one of two sets of budget subcommittees that are meeting today to hear public presentations. Our city colleagues, Shelley Carroll, Gord Perks, and Chris Moyes are the councillors that are meeting right now at City Hall to hear public presentations on the budget. We have had approximately 40 speakers sign up to speak at the 3 meetings here today at Scarborough Civic Centre, and there are 100 that are registered to speak downtown. And I want to thank everybody who has come out to the 2 locations today to speak to Budget Committee. For those of you that are speaking here today, this is how the process works. We have speakers in person and online. If you are online, the video conference host will activate your microphone and you can turn on the video if you like. I will call your names in order on the list. You will have 5 minutes to speak to the Budget Committee. I will try to give you a warning with about 15 seconds and ask for your final thoughts. After you speak, please stay with us because members of the committee may want to ask you questions. After the questions from the committee, you're welcome to stay and listen to others or to continue following the meeting on YouTube. The clerk has received emails and communications from the public about the 2025 budget. These communications are made available to members on CMP, the clerk's meeting portal. I encourage the public to send their comments to the Budget Committee through the budget process by emailing buc@toronto.ca. This is the public's opportunity to speak about the budget. So just so you know, for process, you can speak to us and tell us what you think. We may ask you questions, but there is not a back and forth where you ask questions and there's people available to answer your questions. So this is your opportunity to speak about the budget. It's our opportunity to consider your comments and input before we make our recommendations to the mayor, who will bring forward her budget on February 1st for consideration by council on February 11th. We appreciate you taking the time to participate in the budget process. Okay, we have Councillor Chang joining us online, Deputy Mayor Morley. I will also let you know that our colleague, Councillor Thompson, is joining us here today in the room as well to listen to all of the wonderful thoughts that you will share with us. Okay, on the list. So I'm going to mention the names in threes so that you'll know if you're going to be up next, you want to warm up or get ready on deck, and you're prepared for when I call your name. So the first 3 will be Haydong Wang, followed by Komitha Satkanarajan, followed by Khadija Al-Mekdizi. Okay, Heo Dong, do we have Heo Dong in the room? Okay, come on down. You are the first deputant. When you're ready, there is a button you can press that will turn on the microphone, and you will have 5 minutes.
Hello, my name is Hodong Wong, and I'm the Arts, Community Development, and Culture Working Group Lead at the Toronto Youth Cabinet. Despite my position, I come to you today as not an advocate of culture, but as an advocate for the safety of Toronto's youth and Toronto's citizens as a whole. In 2022, we had over 117,000 children living in poverty, making up 25.3% of all Toronto children. That number has only increased. Toronto is the child poverty capital of Canada. It is not only extremely upsetting, but also serves as a clear indicator as to why our city's violent crime rates have surged, with rates of assault up 5.7% and gun violence up more than 33% from 2023 to 2024. There's also been a 161% spike in youth firearm arrests in the last 2 years, as well as the unfortunate reality of youth being responsible for every 2 in 3 violent carjackings. With our children and families living in poverty, it is not a surprise as to why these statistics have gone up so drastically, especially that of gun violence. According to Public Safety Canada, violent crime rates were highest in youth, specifically those aged 15 to 24. There's an ironclad correlation between youth poverty and violence, as youth are put into economically disadvantaged positions from birth. Job opportunities, skill development, and positive role models who foster personal growth are all harder to come by. Youth end up feeling as though our city has given up on them and turned to violence. If the very city they live in doesn't care, why should they? There's an incredible need for Toronto to support a poor youth population that is disproportionately contributing to violent crime, more than any other demographic, yet very little is being done to address this on a municipal level. Today, you are considering a budget that would rather contribute $85.1 million towards the Toronto Police Service with hopes of stopping crime rather than preventing it from happening entirely. The City of Toronto is aware of proven solutions, namely summer youth employment programs. These programs have been implemented all across North America, showing incredible efficacy. As seen in cities such as Los Angeles, Chicago, Washington, D.C., Detroit, Baltimore, Philly, and New York City, not only do they benefit municipalities from an economic standpoint through skill development and strengthened communities, but they also act as an effective form of violent crime prevention. Those with socioeconomic disadvantages no longer need to face excessive barriers to entry, helping them provide for themselves and their families while fostering a sense of belonging. In 2019, New York City's Summer Youth Employment Program helped place 75,000 youth in jobs. We're asking for 10,000. After accumulating 4 years of data, they observed a strong correlation between felony arrests and convictions with respect to youth employment. Data shows those who entered the NYC Summer Youth Employment Program were 23% less likely to be arrested, while arrests leading to convictions were reduced by 38%. The total number of arrests showed a significant decline as well, decreasing by 14%, while convictions were reduced by 24%. The New York City Summer Youth Employment Program is largely composed of Black and Hispanic youth, 43.5% and 30.5% respectively, who are frequently racially profiled and wrongfully targeted by police. Racism from which Toronto is not exempt from. I want you to consider, these are not just numbers I'm throwing out, but these are real people. Human beings like you and I who live and die by the law and its policymakers, either by old age or the butt end of a bullet. According to the Commonwealth Fund, firearm violence cost the United States government upwards of $557 billion in 2022. Comparatively, the cost per youth assisted in the New York City Summer Youth Employment Program was determined to be $3,331. It itself was offset through human capital development. On December 18th, 2025, a motion to establish the Toronto Youth Employment Program, led by the TYC, was held at City Hall and called for 10,000 youth summer jobs. The motion was deferred. Positive effects are not only seen in New York City, but in all major U.S. cities where violent crime poses as a looming threat. Chicago has seen a 43% violent crime arrest reduction over a 13-month period after its Summer Youth Employment Program, as well as a 35% reduction in the number of violent crime arraignments after 17 months following the program's end. Cities such as Detroit, Atlanta, Baltimore, and LA have all employed youth employment programs and have seen positive results. Why is it? that still, after evidence of efficacy, is Toronto's municipal government denying low-income and at-risk youth opportunity to succeed? Why is it that city councillors are deferring and delaying the motion of 10,000 youth summer jobs to be passed? The youth of Toronto cannot wait. Toronto cannot wait. Today, you're considering a budget that would rather contribute $85.1 million towards the Toronto Police Service with hopes of stopping crime rather than preventing it from happening entirely. The Summer Youth Employment Program is the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your deputation. Are there questions on the screen? I see none. Thank you so much for joining us and caring about our city. Our next speaker is Kamitha Satkanarajan. Thank you for joining us. When you're ready, you have 5 minutes.
Can everyone hear me? Okay. Hello, my name is Kamitha Satkanarajan. I am the Director of Policy and Advocacy at the Toronto Youth Cabinet, the city's official youth advocacy body. I have been part of the Toronto Youth Cabinet since 2020, just a few months after the city went into lockdown and students were sent home to continue their studies online. I joined as a general member, helping out with various initiatives as I navigated my first year of university. It was through the TYC that I got my first adult job, working online on a project aimed at supporting COVID recovery that included the perspectives of young people. I was also fortunate to find work once restrictions began to lift, working at various different retail locations and even landing an internship with my local MP's office. Job hunting was reasonable, and with my experience, even as a young person, I was able to find opportunities that supported me and my family. Fast forward to today. I have been searching for work for the past 11 months to no avail. Despite my experience and despite my own education, and despite the rising cost of living that has placed me and my family in a precarious situation, doing whatever it takes to keep a roof over our heads, a roof that is becoming increasingly more expensive as the days go on. Unemployment is on the rise, and the price of being a young person living in Toronto is on the rise as well. It is not just affecting those without experience, it is also affecting those with experience as well. It is affecting everyone, pushing people beyond their limits in an effort to hold things together. Today, you can see me standing here before you, but what you cannot see is my mother, who got up and went to work at her 6 a.m. shift preparing food for the elderly. Then she went to start her next shift at our local Tim Hortons at 3 p.m., with only 1 hour between shifts to make a 30-minute drive. She will be done work today at 9:30 p.m. And even with all of that, it is still not enough to make ends meet. And every time she comes home and asks me, "Have you found anything yet?" I have to look at her and tell her, "No, Ma, I have not." The Toronto Youth Cabinet has long been calling on investments that will support and empower young people, whether it be through the establishment of youth hubs, targeted initiatives aimed at reducing youth violence rates, and investments in the creation of thousands of new jobs for young people across the city. I'm here to echo these calls. It is vital now more than ever that the city takes proactive steps to ensure that young people have access to the resources they need, whether it be a good job or access to critical resources. These holistic investments will ensure that our communities are safe and are able to grow and thrive. It is my hope that you will heed this call and the call of my colleagues who are currently deputing across the city, so that I may be able to go home to my mother and tell her, "Ma, I found something. It's going to be okay. We're going to be okay." I'm happy to take any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Thank you for your deputation and caring about our city and joining us today. Are there any questions online? Seeing none, thank you. Our next speaker is Khadija Al-Makdizi, followed by Fatima Shaban, followed by Liz Perry. Thank you. When you're ready, you have 5 minutes, and just make sure the microphone's turned on there.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to be present at this budget subcommittee and speak in person regarding our demands. My name is Khadija Al-Magdisi. I am a tenant and a proud ACON member. I am here today to represent not only myself, but all the Toronto tenants. We demand the city to increase the rent safety annual registration fees from $20.50 to $25 per unit. The additional fee revenue can be used to hire more rent safety inspectors. Tenants in Toronto have the right to live in a unit that is habitable and safe. If landlords fail to provide adequate repairs such as plumbing issues, mold, heating problems, or pest problems, to name a few, tenants can file complaints with the city. Because most of the time, landlords do not care about tenant complaints, rent safety will need to stand firmly by the tenants to ensure that tenant rights are met. Therefore, we demand that more inspectors be hired. Furthermore, inspectors should be inspecting not only the common areas of the apartment buildings, but inspect the units as well, because our experience is that the landlords are neglectful of unit repairs while focusing on the common areas, knowing that those will be annually inspected. Also, I would add that inspectors should receive more training to learn to deal with the multicultural aspect of Toronto and leave their biases at home. One of the most pressing issues in Toronto is the shortage of affordable housing, which drives up rental prices and makes it difficult for many residents to find suitable and affordable accommodation. The high demand for rental properties also aggravate tenant issues. Landlords can evict tenants without cause by providing notice under specific conditions, such as the unit is needed for personal use or renovation. These evictions can result in tenants being displaced, especially in areas where rental prices are soaring. Landlords evict tenants under the pretext of doing renovations, but may later increase the rent or convert the unit to a higher priced space. This has been a rising concern in Toronto. Therefore, please double funding for Toronto Rent Bank to provide financial assistance to up to 5,500 people per year. Unfortunately, prices of groceries and everything else are skyrocketing, including rents, and the number of people who need assistance are rapidly increasing. More and more tenants are facing temporary financial difficulties such as loss of jobs, illness, or other unexpected expenses that has made it impossible to pay their rent and are at risk of eviction or have an eviction order pending due to unpaid rent. Expand eligibility to the Toronto Rent Bank for the Toronto Rent Bank to Ontario Works and Ontario Disability Support Program recipients. Many individuals and families who rely on Ontario Works or an Ontario Disability Support Program are finding it increasingly difficult to make ends meet in Toronto due to the city's high cost of living, especially when it comes to housing, transportation, food, or other essentials. While both programs provide support for living expenses, the amounts provided have often been criticized as insufficient to cover the high cost of living in Toronto. Toronto has one of the biggest rental markets in Canada. Even if individuals on OW or ODSP are able to find housing, rent often consumes the majority, if not the whole, of their monthly allowance. This can lead to extreme stress, overcrowding, or reliance on temporary housing solutions such as shelters or staying with family members. There is a long waiting list for subsidized on rent geared to income housing, and the demand far exceeds the supply.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
Thank you.
Questions of the deputant? Seeing none, thank you for coming. Thank you for caring about our city.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Our next speaker is Fatima Shaban, followed by Liz Perry, followed by Sheila Pospier. Thank you for joining us. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Fatima. Hello, everyone. My name is Fatima Shaban, and I am a mom, a first-generation immigrant, and a member of ACORN. Today, I'm here not only representing myself, but also other young families. I am here today to demand that the city do better in eliminating tenant displacement. My main demand is no tenant displacement. We need to double up the funding for the Toronto Rent Bank to provide financial assistance up to $5,500 each year. It is essential that we also expand eligibility for the Toronto Rent Bank to include recipients of Ontario Works and Ontario Disability Support Program, so that the most vulnerable can benefit from this as well. These changes are a start, and they are necessary to help those who are struggling. Let me share a personal experience. In my building, I've been helping neighbors access the Toronto Rent Bank. And while we are grateful that we have this support, it's been eye-opening to see how many people fall through the cracks. There are families who are too rich to qualify for the grant, but are too poor to make rent. For instance, a family where both parents work minimum wage jobs and have a child receiving the Canada Child Benefit would be disqualified from the Toronto Rent Bank, even though they are just trying to make ends meet. This isn't just an isolated issue. It's a systemic problem affecting thousands across our city. We are witnessing an epidemic of evictions fueled by the AGI crisis, aggravated by the lack of rent control. While we acknowledge that this is a provincial issue, the city must step up and take action. Until we achieve proper rent control, we cannot afford to ignore the growing risk of homelessness. So I urge you all to support our main demand: no tenant displacement. Let's advocate for the doubling of funding for the Toronto Rent Bank and the expansion of its eligibility criteria. Today, we can make a difference and ensure that no one in our community is left behind. Thank you.
Thank you for your deputation. Are there questions of the deputant? Seeing none, thank you for coming. Thank you for caring
Thank
about
you.
our city. Our next speaker is Liz Perry, followed by Sheila Prosper, followed by Zain Kurim. Thank you for joining us. You have 5 minutes.
Good evening. I'd like to start by extending my thanks to Acorn Canada Tenants Union for the opportunity to speak tonight on behalf of all tenants living in Toronto. My name is Liz, and I've been a resident of Toronto and tenant in rental properties for over 40 years. With that information, you can already guess that I'm here to deliver a heartfelt message to the members of this committee about housing, more importantly, affordable housing. You have critical decisions to make, and my hope is that you take what I say tonight into your heart when deciding the City of Toronto's budget of 2025. Right now, quality of life for the citizens of Toronto is at risk, and affordable housing is non-existent. We have a premier who will destroy our city piece by piece to build million-dollar homes and spas just to line his pockets with money from his developer friends. This is not providing a solution to affordable housing, as the citizens in Toronto are living paycheck to paycheck, and many of us are one unexpected bill away from being homeless. Starting in 2024 and continuing into 2025, that unexpected bill is arriving each month to tenants living in apartment buildings in Toronto. It is called an above-guideline increase and retroactive rent payments. Since 2021, there have been hundreds of AGIs submitted to the Landlord-Tenant Board by landlords in Toronto. Those same AGIs are now being rubber stamped and approved by the Landlord-Tenant Board. This impacts thousands of tenants in Toronto as they are now facing legal judgment orders from the Landlord-Tenant Board to pay thousands of their hard-earned dollars in retroactive rent to these multi-million-dollar companies. This is not acceptable or fair, as the landlords are not willing to maintain or update apartments for their legacy tenants. But those same tenants are now expected to pay for repairs that benefit the landlord to receive a high rent-safe rating from the city. There is no effort by these corporate landlords to ensure that the rent that they receive each month from a tenant is budgeted properly to maintain standard operating costs and repairs to the building. But why should they, when the provincial government and the Landlord-Tenant Board allows these landlords the legal option to demand the money from their tenants, and if the tenant refuses to pay, they will be evicted, which is a win either way for that landlord. If the tenant pays, they have that money and an increase in the tenant's rent for years. If the tenant leaves, they get a new tenant, and that will pay a higher rent amount, at least $1,000 more a month than the previous tenant. There is no loss for the landlord in this situation. Which brings me why I am here tonight. I believe that the people here deciding the dispensation of funds for the 2025 City of Toronto budget can bring hope to its residents. I believe that there is a golden opportunity for you to lead the way in ensuring that a citizen living in a major Canadian city has a safe and clean home to call their own, and you can make it happen. Acorn Canada and I are asking the committee to understand that the same corporations that have raised rents and submitted AGIs to drain money from tenants are also buying or have bought residential properties, either houses or multi-unit buildings, and have left them empty. It is their plan to maximize profits by limiting the supply and driving up the demand for housing. We believe that increasing the vacant home tax from 1.5% to 5% would be a good start in correcting a lack of available housing, as we cannot depend on corporations to act on behalf of people. They only understand profit and loss. The City of Toronto can make that loss greater to encourage those property owners to get the vacant properties to the market. With the money collected from the vacant home tax, you can fund the multi-unit residential acquisition program to accelerate the purchasing of apartment buildings in Toronto. We need to remove residential properties from the for-profit model of corporations, especially buildings like 500 Dawes Road. Acorn Canada and I are also asking this committee to remember what Canadian values are, that we help those in need and fight against oppression. We need you to stand up for the residents of Toronto and ensure that everyone has a home to shelter in at the end of the day. Thank you.
Thank you for your deputation and caring about our city. Are there any questions of the deputant? Okay, seeing none, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Sheila Prosper, followed by Zane Kurum, followed by Demi Conte. Do we have Sheila? Okay, we can come back to her later. I can't guarantee the timing, might be at the end, but we can come back. Zane? Do we have Zane Kurum in the room? Oh, hi, thank you. You have 5 minutes when you're ready.
Sorry, just 10 seconds. Sorry, I just came by. Just ran here. Sorry about that. Okay. So good evening, councillors. My name is Zane Kurum. I am the transit lead here representing the Toronto Youth Cabinet. Established in 1998 by Toronto City Council, the Toronto Youth Cabinet is the official youth advocacy body to the city. We are a youth-led organization that promotes youth participation in municipal affairs and policy developments. In November 2023, let's get this part. So I recently started volunteering for a robotics program at a local high school right here in Scarborough. I'm sure you're all familiar with the name, David and Mary Thompson Collegiate Institute. It's a very new school. It's only 5 years old and designed to have the state-of-the-art facilities to educate students. But the school and student can be very different. I'm in this school at least once a week, but every time I enter through those front doors, I'm reminded of the unfortunate incident in February of 2022 where one student took the life of another student in a shooting that police could only describe as an execution. This was the second ever student death on school property in TDSB history. But then 9 months later, another fatal shooting happened at Woburn Collegiate. I'm not trying to paint a picture that only violence and gun crime can only happen in Scarborough. Gun violence is very prevalent, and it's a very big problem happening all across the city. It's only trending younger and younger. And I strongly believe that there is a correlation between the rise of youth violence and crime with the highest youth employment rates that Toronto has seen in decades. These are talented, ambitious young people who are looking for opportunities to contribute to their communities and support the economy. But because of decades of disinvestment, where young people in the city's most vulnerable communities are starved of opportunities, as young people, we should not live in communities with overwhelming poverty and violence. We deserve to live in communities with a bounty of opportunity and resources. This past summer, we hosted town halls across the city for our youth in the wake of a youth crime wave. One message we heard over and over is that young people want jobs, and that these jobs will really help them contribute to their communities and society by being productive citizens. There's also extensive research demonstrating the benefits of youth employment, including improved academic outcomes and enhanced skill development. And so, with the support of the Toronto District School Board and the Toronto Catholic District School Board, the Toronto Youth Cabinet has been calling on the Mayor and the City Council to invest in more youth spaces and recreational programming, and to set up a youth employment program to enable young people to find meaningful work. And my appreciation goes out to Councillor Conville, who put forth this initiative in December as a motion in December's council meeting. I personally have benefited from having summer jobs with the city. I've spent 2 summers working for the Toronto Transit Commission and the Toronto Parking Authority. I know full well of the impact this initiative can have on countless of youth, while providing with positive understanding of the development and impact of the services we rely on as Torontonians. But we shouldn't just stop at youth-focused jobs. We need additional youth hubs across the city. Places that aren't school or home, where youth can relax with friends, do homework, or even pick up a new skill. The rise in violence we've been seeing is perpetuated by youth in our communities, and it will not be effectively addressed through downstream approaches of policing first. Only through an upstream, community-driven response can we see a city that can truly be successful. So councillors, during this budget season, I hope that you will truly consider prioritizing youth by investing in alternative approaches to raising our young people in the city, because ultimately, these young people will be next generations of leaders in the city. Thank you so much for the time today. Apologize for the speech. I'm still out of breath, but thanks so much.
Thank you. You sound great to me. We have one question online. Councillor Chang, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for your deputation. I just have a couple questions. It's great to hear you had a positive experience working with the TTC and the Toronto Parking Authority, and I'm just wondering, was that part of a program funded by the city, or how did you land those opportunities?
Yeah, for sure. So the TTC position was a part of the summer student program that the TTC offers yearly, and the parking authority position was through a co-op that is jointly, I guess, organized by my university. But essentially, we recognize, the Toronto Youth Cabinet does recognize there are several ways that youth can get involved with the city. We are simply asking councillors and the city to look at how we can increase those amazing programs. The TTC only lets so many students in, but imagine the positive impact the positive impact on not just our students, but the entire system as a whole. If we have much more students working in our stations to clean them up, maintain the vehicles, imagine how much of an improvement that can be to our young people and social services.
Thank you. And I wonder is there a summary from the town halls that were hosted that you could send to us councillors? Because I think it would be great for us to understand the many important perspectives that were shared across the city.
For sure. I don't have the exact statistics on hand, but I'd be happy to forward that to my team, and we can set something up or share something for the councillors.
That would be amazing. I think we would all benefit from hearing from the important voices that you interact with. So thank you for your work and being here today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Councillor Cheng, and thank you also for listening, Councillor Morley and Deputy Mayor McKelvey.
Thank you. Okay, no other questions? Okay, thanks for joining us. That brings us to Demi Conte, followed by Saffron Binder, followed by Raylene Downs. Thank you for joining us. You have 5 minutes.
Okay, can you hear me? Yeah. Good evening, everyone. My name is Demi Conte. I'm a resident of North York in the city of Toronto and a member of the Toronto Youth Cabinet Budget Working Group. I stand before you today with nothing but a simple request to increase the funding for the student nutrition program. 2 years ago, during my middle school years, I made a rude comment about how I found the nutrition program unnecessary. I questioned why kids couldn't just bring their own snacks to school and why teachers had to overly encourage us to eat what was provided. Despite being blinded by my own privilege, I was quickly corrected by a friend who shared that the program had saved her sister from eating disorder and serious health complications. At the time, I didn't fully understand, but as I grew older, I became aware of the alarming rates of children who don't have food on their plates every day and have developed a complicated relationship with food due to this. In fact, over 2.1 million children in Canada lived in food insecure households in 2023, and in Toronto, the situation is even more dire, with over 20.6% of kids facing the harsh reality of not knowing when their next meal is going to come from. These numbers aren't just statistics. They represent the children in our neighborhoods who are going to school hungry and struggling to survive. Child poverty and food insecurity are deeply intertwined, and the effects are devastating. Nutrition is fundamental to a child's development, affecting their physical health, mental well-being, and ability to succeed. When children are hungry, they cannot focus in school. The energy level drop, and their future is compromised before they can even begin. As alarming as it is, these effects also contribute to systemic inequalities, making it even harder for children like myself who come from low-income households to break from the cycle of poverty. The student nutrition program is not a luxury, it is a lifeline, and yet, the program consistently faces struggle with limited funding as demand continues to grow. Without additional support, more children are at risk of missing out on the nutrition they so desperately need to grow, learn, and succeed. Once again, these aren't just numbers, they are real human stories. The children who eats only at school because there's no food at home, or the student who finally feels safe and cared for because the meals provided by this program. So I urge you to look beyond your privileged standpoints and consider the children who rely on this program for their well-being and mental health. Increased funding is not just an investment in food, it is an investment in a brighter and more equitable future for all of us. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions, comments, or concerns you may have.
Thank you. Are there questions of the deputant? Oh, don't leave. Deputy Mayor Morley has a question for you.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I hope you can hear me okay in the room. And thank you so much for joining us and sharing your voice on this really important issue. I just wanted to ask if you are aware of the additional investment that we are in fact making in 2025 to extend the student nutrition program and serve more students, acknowledging there's more work for us to do and a long way to go, but I just wanted to confirm if you were aware that there is additional investment in the budget that's been presented.
No, I am not. I'm very happy to hear that, by the way.
Yes, definitely a priority for the mayor and this council. And so thank you so much for your advocacy and keep it up. Thanks, Madam Chair. That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions? Seeing none, thank you for joining us. Thank you for caring about our city. Our next speaker is Saffron Binder, followed by Raylene Downs, followed by Yuthish Ganesh. We have Saffron online?
Working?
Yep, we can hear you. Thank you. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Okay, so good evening, counselors. My name is Saffron Binder. I'm a public health student at Toronto Metropolitan University. I'm here today to speak about improving indoor air quality within Toronto, specifically in regards to establishing an indoor air quality regulation and bylaw across the city, implementing CO2 monitoring in municipal buildings and public schools, and creating an incentive program for HVAC upgrades. I'm speaking on this issue as a public health student and as someone whose life has been dramatically affected by poor indoor air quality. In 2023, I was infected with COVID at my workplace, which had poor air quality despite masking with a KN94 mask, and experienced debilitating long COVID as a result. I lost a family member to acute COVID in 2021, a stark reminder of the human cost of poor indoor air quality. We are at a very unique point in human history. We're going on year 5 of the deadly disabling COVID-19 pandemic, with multiple other infectious diseases like RSV, flu, strep, and norovirus surging, and H5N1 threatening to be the next pandemic. The science on COVID is very clear. COVID is preventable, and we should do everything in our power to prevent the spread of infectious diseases within our city. COVID is prevented by high-quality mass testing and improving indoor air quality. Studies have shown that in schools, for example, improving ventilation reduces the risk of infection to students by 80%. It is very personal to me the way in which we are sacrificing future generations' health and quality of life right now. My family, including 2 6-month-olds, are constantly sick and feel helpless, as no matter what they do, they are infected by the school system repeatedly. This is the same for my classmates, my coworkers, my friends, and my professors. Everyone is constantly sick because we as a society have refused to address the ongoing disaster that is the COVID-19 pandemic. About 80% of transmission occurs at super spreader events, and of that 80%, 70% happens in schools, mostly with poor ventilation. This has serious effects on all youth and families. A study recently showed that COVID infection is associated with a significant decrease in outstanding academic results. The goal of clean indoor air aligns with the goal of making the city a safer, healthier environment for youth. We want our kids and youth to reach their absolute fullest potential without the risk or burden of chronic repeated infections. Equitable access to clean indoor air will help reduce the risk of chronic illness and let youth fulfill their academic and/or career aspirations. It cannot be understated how devastating COVID has been to our health. I've read hundreds of studies on coronavirus, and it is one of the most insidious viruses in existence. COVID damages every organ system in the body. It affects your immune system by destroying T cells and lingers in the body like HIV post-infection, and it is incredibly contagious. You have a 3 times higher risk of death in the year following an infection, and roughly 1 in 4 people get long COVID each time they get infected, affecting their ability to work and live. COVID is an endothelial disease that wreaks havoc on the entire body. It is anything but mild. Right now, 1 in every 61 people in Canada are estimated to have an active COVID infection. COVID is a serious but preventable threat to the health of everyone in Toronto. The city has a responsibility to protect public health. It is hypocritical to refuse to improve indoor air quality in Toronto, while the City of Toronto has an IAQ policy for its own employees, clearly recognizing the importance of indoor air quality when it comes to health. There are many examples of schools, including TMU, taking steps to improve indoor air quality, but these precautions are not standard yet. COVID disproportionately affects workers, with 68% of deaths in 2020 being labor, retail, and service workers. 1.3 million working people in Toronto are forced to experience poor air quality as they commute and work every day, unlike City of Toronto employees who are protected by clean air standards. Long COVID creates a huge economic strain, with millions unable to work or participate in the economy. The economic payoff of less sickness is very significant. People can't work or spend money when they are sick, and more sickness increases the strain on our already struggling healthcare system. All of this suffering is preventable. The lack of protection for workers and commuters creates a huge inequity within Toronto. I've measured this carbon dioxide on the TTC, and it reaches as high as 2,400 ppm. Roughly 5.8% of every breath you take is someone else's breath. This creates conditions perfect for the spread of infectious diseases. Investing in clean air is an investment in the health of everyone, in our children, in workers, and in the future. We clean our water to prevent cholera, uphold food safety regulations to prevent salmonella and listeria, protect workers with health and safety regulations, and enforce sanitization standards across the city. There is no good reason we shouldn't be cleaning our air as well. Cleaning the air is one of the most important actions we can take right now as we battle COVID, RSV, flu, strep, H5N1, norovirus, wildfires, and air pollution. The air is a viral soup that we cannot avoid. Cleaning the air is being on the right side of history. I strongly urge you all to sit with the responsibility you've taken on as part of managing the budget and think deeply about the impact of creating air quality standards, implementing carbon dioxide monitoring, and creating an incentive program. It is only with the support of the budget that these changes can be implemented. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you for your deputation. Are there any questions of the deputant? Seeing none, thank you for joining us. Our next speaker is Raylene Downs, followed by Yuthish Ganesh, followed by James Hockaday. Do we have Raylene here online? Hello, Raylene. We just need you to try unmuting again.
I tried. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now. Thank you. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening. Sorry, I can't a replacement laptop. Good evening. My name is Raylene Downs, and I currently reside at 263 Pharmacy, and I'm here to speak to this lovely panel in regards to increasing funding for social housing. I'm here to ask that you increase the budget for social housing, specifically Toronto Community TCHC, pardon me, to $300 million to help the corporation do the necessary repairs on many of their properties, and to help decrease their $2.2 billion capital budget deficit. I used to live in a Toronto community housing building and only lived there just over a year as the pest cockroach bedbug situation was unbearable. The roaches did not respect my boundaries and continued to move from other people's units into mine. And after repeated requests for treatment, it just never took place. I had the chance to visit someone who lives in a building just over the holidays, and she's a 20-story building with 2 elevators, and she said often, at least 3 days a week, there's only 1 elevator that works, that she needs a new lock and doorknob. She has to use a deadbolt and her own manufactured locking system on her door. So I just think that social housing doesn't mean it shouldn't mean that they live in squalor. I ask that the people of this panel try and put the shoe on the other foot. If you had a family member or yourself had to live in a building that you paid what you could, or you paid market rent and something needed repair, but you weren't met with respect, you weren't met with dignity, how would that make you feel? I understand that it's a pardon me, I'm just a little breathless. I just think that just because it's social housing, it doesn't need to be ugly and in disrepair. We just ask that. I'm sorry, I've become lost for words. I find this very overwhelming, and I just think that it's a systemic issue, and that affordability does not need to make people feel like they're less than.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for joining us. Is there any questions for the deputy? And you did a great job telling your story. Thank you for sharing that with us today. Our next deputant is Yuthish Ganesh.
Deputy Mayor, I just want to also echo your words of gratitude to Raylene. Thank you for the courage it took you to come online and share your deputation.
Okay. Our next speaker is Yuthish Ganesh, followed by James Hockaday, followed by Brenda Hockaday. Thank you for joining us. You have 5 minutes when you're ready.
Good evening. My name is Yuthish Ganesh, and I'm a teacher in the neighborhood I was born and raised in South Scarborough. I also serve as an elder and knowledge keeper for the City of Toronto to holistically address violence, as well as leading community-centered initiatives to proactively protect youth. I'm also privileged to witness the positive shift in the Winston Churchill School community over the last 6 to 7 years. Our school is located in the Dorset Park area in Scarborough, and there's many layers to the school's history, reputation, and commitment to equity. I've spent most of my life living in neighborhood improvement areas across the city, and as a racialized boy, son of a single mother, living in these neighborhoods feels as if your life is determined for you in the most detrimental way possible. However, I wouldn't trade these experiences for anything, as they have shaped me into the positive role model for youth that undergo the experiences I overcame or relate to. Immediately bestowed upon you when you're born into these neighborhoods are stereotypes, self-fulfilling prophecies, and questions from authority figures that question your every move. I am here to speak on how holistically supporting youth, providing realistic pathways, in turn supports stronger communities, increases safer environments, and allows folks to become better ancestors for future generations. At WCCI, I am currently the staff advisor of the Young Male Leadership Group, which started in 2018. The group was designed to support the underserved boys in the local community and work with their attempts to become active and responsible citizens. The program is also designed to help these young men understand fundamental components of character education and how they can be leaders in their own community. What started out as helping 15 boys how to tie a tie, what a resume looked like, what food handling looked like, blossomed into a group that is critical and aware of our community. Dorset Park experiences multiple equity gaps, which led to some brainstorming. We understood that access to healthy foods was the biggest gap we see with families in our spaces. We then made the call for donations, and the Bulldog Cafe was born. The current iteration of the cafe now provides the community with non-perishable food items, school essentials, and hygienic products to 150 to 200 families monthly. We noticed the gaps the community had and how we can respond to these needs. Gentlemen, the ones behind me, these families you help support are eternally grateful. The gentlemen have accomplished the following: a perfect graduation rate, including 23 students graduating in 2024, 11 the year before, 17 in 2022, and 7 in 2020. All students have intentionally completed their volunteer hours and improved behavior in classroom, attendance, and reduced suspension and expulsion rates to 0. Over the last 2 years, students in WCCI schools across Scarborough attended an employability program on Saturdays. They built core skills focusing on job preparation, specific skills such as food handling and trade-based skills. These students were selected from multiple levels of criteria. The recent cohort of the Young Male Leadership Group students that earned their way to the program had 23 students, and all 23 students secured part-time jobs, summer jobs, or started their independent business. Each of these students had stayed out of trouble, committed to a post-secondary institution, and are defeating stereotypes. There are many anti-violence programs across the city. Faith-based communities, grassroots organizations, and schools also participate. However, additional funding and structured programming within existing City of Toronto spaces will make our jobs protecting youth that much easier. The 2 recommendations include the following. The first is training and hiring graduation and support coaches that are attached to community centers, mainly ones that are from the community as well, to honor their knowledge. Many community centers are active and host community spaces, drop-ins, and much more. Providing funding to have these spaces amplified is a part of the recipe to protect youth after school hours. Working with companies and cities, the second recommendation, working with companies and cities that provide the food to schools and avoid hunger is also part of the process. Many do not realize the correlation between hunger and school and student success. There have been multiple studies done to record the opportunity gaps that occur when this happens. The additional layers that I recommend the city focuses on for their budget is looking at schools that are in UPHS schools, so urban priority high schools, as well as schools that are ranked low on the Learning Opportunities Index. When youth are given opportunities, realistic pathways, and a strong sense of efficacy, they feel confident and ready to advocate and take on stereotypes they'll inevitably take on and conquer. When we place high expectations for youth, they rise to those expectations. So let's provide opportunities to see these youth rise. Thank you for giving me the time to speak today, and I look forward to witnessing how the city continues to protect our youth.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Are there questions of the deputant? Seeing none, thank you for caring about our city.
No.
Thank you for being here today. Jazz hands, jazz hands, jazz hands. Reminder. Right, that's it. You guys got it. Okay. James Hockaday is next, followed by Brenda Hockaday, followed by Aaron Lau.
Excuse me, is anyone actually listening?
Yeah.
Because you guys have been looking at your phones and your computers for the entire duration, and I see 4 of you who haven't looked up the entire time.
So I write notes, and I have notes over here, and so part of it is writing notes and checking things off. So and looking.
Which is why I said 4.
But thank you. Okay.
We spent a lot of time.
Next, the next speaker is James Hockaday, Brenda Hockaday, and Aaron Lai. Oh, okay. Thank you. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is James Hockaday. I'm here to speak with Acorn Canada, and I'd like to talk about rent control and the AGIs and our rent safe scores. I realize that you've heard some stuff, and you're going to hear some more about the rental increases that have been just like rubber stamped and sent on through. I'll give you a little bit of personal background. My wife and I had lived outside of Toronto for a number of years, and we just moved to Toronto about 8 years ago, and we decided to rent this place at Pharmacy Avenue. We weren't aware of the programs that were out there with the rent score and stuff like that, which would have made our decision a lot more helpful. I would, so when we finally decided, we didn't choke like I am right now. Anyway, we decided on a place, but I'd worked with the homeless in the past in the downtown core of Toronto, and I've seen so much through Toronto Housing, which has been mentioned, other social programs that help people afford their rent. I really think, I know it's a provincial problem, but I really think the city needs to help us step up, deal with the province, and work with these programs just to provide better support for everybody. Because this is just not rental places. These are our homes. These are our communities. These are the people that we live next door to, walk our dogs with, etc. So tonight, I'm just asking that the AGIs, the above rental guideline rental increases, be readdressed, perhaps, if they can be, but more bylaw officers actually going in and checking these places and seeing exactly what is going on there. Because obviously the score in our building is not really reflecting what we're seeing living as tenants in the building. We chose to live in this rental building, for starters, for health reasons, because we had to come to Toronto for my mother's cancer treatments. My wife, which you'll see here shortly, her treatments. So the city of Toronto is a great place to live. Good resources, good people, and a good source of fun, of community. I just want to see that continue on. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there questions of the deputant? Councillor Chang has a question. Go ahead.
Yeah, just a short question. As you may know, it is likely that there will be provincial elections in the next few weeks. And so just wondering, if Acorn is planning any activities and how perhaps, the city could also support that advocacy.
I can't speak to that with any great educated guess, but we do have some. But yeah, definitely you'll see more of us out, and definitely on the provincial platform, we're going to have a conversation. I'm very well sure of that. So.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for caring about our city. Our next speaker is Brenda Hockday. And then after Brenda is Aaron Lal, followed by Gunay Gunaysel, and then we'll go back to Sheila again. Sheila's still here now? Great. Yes. Oh, okay. Oh, no, you don't have to sign up to listen. But that's okay, but thank you. Okay, so that's good to know. Okay, so then we have Brenda, followed by Aaron, followed by Sheila. You can come speak to the clerk. Is it a registration issue? Okay, one of the clerks maybe can talk to you. Okay, go ahead, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Brenda Hockaday. My husband and I reside at 263 Pharmacy. I joined Acorn a few months ago. You've met my husband, Jay, and he has already mentioned some points on the AGI. I called Rent Bank today. It's useful only if rent is past due or eviction notices have been received. The main contact number is the call center as to where they do the initial intakes. If you're on ODSP or OW, you won't qualify for Rent Bank. but can inquire at Housing Stabilization Fund, which your worker can put you in touch with. For AGI arrears, you can contact 311 City for help with rent that is not officially overdue as of yet. Also, there is the Housing Help Program, which is available, but the wait time is very lengthy. To put things into perspective, the minimum income to rent in Toronto is 30% of your rent. So if your rent's $2,500 a month, the required annual income should be approximately $93,750. And this is not affordable for anybody. Average salary in Toronto as of January 2025 is $26.67 per hour, so $57.50 per year. My husband is on EI currently because his job is seasonal, and I'm on disability, and we virtually can't afford to live in Toronto. The AGI we're facing is going to be an extra $370 a month, which we can't afford, and they've only given us 6 months to pay. Now, the head poobahs are to be giving us some extensions, which I have applied for an application and told them approximately what we can afford per month, but I haven't had any response from them. We're now living off our savings, and it's, why should we have to pay market value when we're being slapped with AGI arrears and we have little to no water pressure, parking's not accessible, and there's mold in our apartments. So when the building is not up to market standards and it's not reflected in the rent safe score. So we need to look seriously about expanding our eligibility and increase our rent bank funds. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions of the deputant? Thank you for coming. Thank you for caring about our city. Our next speaker is Aaron Lal, followed by Sheila Prosper. Hello, you have 5 minutes.
Okay. Hello. My name is Aaron Lal. I have been living in this Scarborough Agent Court area for 40 years. Some questions and some issues and concerns are half-built infrastructures which have been abandoned, land being sold without residents having any say, community members uninvolved, slumlords not fixing old buildings such as 65 to 99 Silver Springs Boulevard, but wanting to build new infrastructure consisting of 22 stories, which should only be suitable for downtown area. At this point in time, I would like Ward 22 to have a safety and financial audit and a zoning law amendment not exceeding more than 12 stories. Thank you for seeing my ability, not my disability. Have a good day.
Thank you for joining us. Are there any questions? Thanks for being here today. Our next two are Sheila Prosper, followed by Harry Harden. Thank you for joining us. You have 5 minutes when you're ready.
Hello, good evening to all. My name is Sheila Prosper, and I'll be talking today regarding affordable housing and rent safety. So rent safety increased rent to register fee, which is a $25 per unit, on par with the multi-tenant rooming housing registration fee. We need to hire additional rent safety inspectors using additional registration fee. And affordable housing covenant. We need to mandate that all rental housing development funded by the City of Toronto to include affordable housing covenant. The covenant should cap year-to-year rent increase to 1% to 5 years before transitioning to annual provincial rent increase guideline. And they should also mandate vacant control and mandate at least 30% of the rental unit in the development to be affordable. Everyone deserves to succeed, but today, too many Canadians work hard. Their paycheck isn't paying off like the previous generation. Your paycheck doesn't go as far as to cost up and to enough, sorry. Your paycheck doesn't paying off like we did the previous generation. Your paycheck doesn't go far to cost of living, and saving enough seems harder and harder. It doesn't have to be this way. Every generation should be getting a fair chance to go ahead. One of our biggest pressure on people right now is housing, especially for young Canadians and low and moderate middle income families who rent. In the last decade, hundreds of thousands of affordable homes have been lost in Canada. Some are demolished and not been replaced. Others sold to speculators and large corporations with skyrocket rent, renovation, and lack of housing options, and tenants being priced out of their communities. For renters, it feels like the deck is stacked against them. We need to build more homes faster to get Canadians into homes that meet their needs at prices they can afford. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there questions of the deputant? Seeing none, thank you for joining us, Sheila.
Thank you.
Our next deputant is Harry Harden.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Harry Harron, a property owner. My coming here, I just heard it over the radio, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to raise my frustration. My biggest frustration is why is the mayor not targeting all Torontonians? All Torontonians. Why only the property owners? Is that because they are easy targets? Most property owners aren't wealthy. They just that because they own, they worked hard, and many of them have acquired these properties in the last 30, 20, 10 years. They were not born into properties, most of them. So my question is, why are the other Torontonians, people who live here, the renters, the people who come at dusk and leave at, who come in the dawn and leave at dusk, not pay their fair share to carry this city of ours? So that's my question for Mayor. Mayor, please don't take the shortcut. Please improve efficiencies in your departments, capital, operating, as well as planning. Hold officials accountable and hold people who come into this city to pay their fair share of taxes, just not the property owners who are being squeezed. They don't have increased revenues. For some reason, they target them because they have a database. They think they are wealthy. Most of them are struggling. So over to you, Chair. These are my points. If you have any questions, I can elaborate, but I did not come prepared to give you a lengthy spiel.
That's okay, thank you. Oh, do you have questions? Okay, Deputy Mayor Morley, followed by Councillor Chang. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Morley.
Thanks, Madam Chair, and thanks for joining us today, Harry, to share your input. I just wanted to inquire if you're familiar with the city's fiscal framework and the tools that we have through provincial legislation to like where we get our revenue to manage all of the city responsibilities. Do you have any familiarity with that fiscal framework?
I don't know, but all I know is what you are not doing.
Right.
Please don't hide
So I
behind the
would,
frameworks. Frameworks can be negotiated, altered, improved, and made effective.
absolutely. So as my next question is, are you familiar at all with our long-term financial plan and our goal to address our structural deficit? Because the main revenue generating tool that the city has access to is the property tax base. And so that is a problem. We are in agreement, and we have been working diligently, and it's part of our long-term financial plan to address. There is the work, and I'll ask if you're aware. To that point, the Federation of Municipalities is working to get a better financial framework, because out of every dollar of taxes that come out of our pockets as residents and as citizens, 10 cents come to the city, and is mainly driven to the property tax base. So we do have a problem for sure. And it's
Sorry,
time.
I didn't follow that. Out of the, you
So
had
out
to
of
speak a
every
bit
dollar.
clearly. It's,
So, Deputy Mayor Morley, do you want to just turn off your camera to ask the rest of that question? It was breaking up a little bit, so the feed might be a little clearer. Go ahead.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Hopefully that's better. But I'm just asking Harry about our long-term financial plan, in the fact that we are in agreement. The city cannot appropriately address our financial challenges based on the framework we have, because the main tool that we have is property tax based. So I just wanted to inquire if that was something you were familiar with. And I would encourage you to check out our website to learn more, because we have a lot of work to do in that regard, and it is a challenge for all of us.
Vice Chair, a lot of time has been wasted. You have known about this structural deficit for so many years. And now you're coming hard with Mayor Olivia Chow breathing down on the property tax, property owners. You have seen the train coming. You have not been able to get hold of the provincial, federal guys, again, who fund various other activities, such as TTC, which is the city is bearing TTC, and many others are riding that. So, for your lack of ability to hold the provincial, federal governments, the easy scapegoat is the property tax, property owner. And they are not property owners anymore. They are not landlords. They have been hijacked by rent lords. So, that's my term. They are rent lords. I'm not a landlord. So please, it's high time, high noon to get down to action, and we all. And why are you not getting an input from all the residents of Toronto to voice against the federal provincial government? Why has it got to be only the property owners who have to raise their voice, many of whom are not raising their voice? I don't know, they're busy working 2 and 3 jobs, like the renters. She feels sorry for the renters, Ms. Chow, but what about the golden goose that is being strangled every day?
Thank you. Are there any other questions?
I don't want to.
Councillor Chang has a question for you. Go ahead, Councillor Chang.
Thank you so much. I can feel your passion and concern for the city budget and your desire to advocate. And did you know that we'll likely have provincial and federal elections this year, which introduces a great opportunity to work together to amplify that the City of Toronto cannot only be funded by property taxes?
Yes, all these are great, but why are you, the councillors, not getting the masses involved to shake the federal and provincial government trees? You guys are trying to do it
Do you
alone.
think, so do you think that it's easy to communicate an idea like a fiscal framework for people to catch on to? Or do you think it's easier to have a easy slogan like axe the tax that can get a lot of attention? Do you think that counselors aren't trying to get the message across, but it just isn't getting the same kind of traction? But we should work harder, I agree. But do you think that we're not doing this?
I don't see that at the leadership. Olivia Chow has never said that. I know she's trying to work with Chrystia Freeland and some of the allies who have now stepped aside for a
I will
moment.
add,
Did you
know that
understand
we
my
did get-
frustration? You councillors are
I
not
do.
doing
I'm
enough.
also a property owner. I also have to pay property tax. I'm also raising a family in the city. I get your frustration, and I think we can be frustrated together and turn that negativity into action. And we hope that in the coming elections, we can join the Federation of Canadian Municipalities and have a strong voice that cities across the country are all saying we don't have the tools we need to succeed as a city. So unfortunately, at this moment, the pressure is on the property taxpayer because we have no other legal tools to our disposal. And I don't know if you knew that. Do you know that we have no other legal tools to fund our operations except the property tax and user fees?
I don't know, but we don't have to get to this point today to wake up, we should have woken up 10 years ago.
Yes, I agree with you, and we will work together.
Yeah,
Thank you.
please
Thank
convey
you for
this
coming.
to Madam Chow, that she better look around, not look at the easiest purse. And that purse is empty. And if landlords, and we hear a lot of words slumlords, there are slum tenants equally, and deadbeat tenants. Everything is woven into the structure, and controls. If the controls are lacking, everybody will misuse. Take the landlord-tenant board that was screwed by Doug Ford. So all these problems, I know they are not easy, but you guys have to get together and speak not about one, but everything, the key activities. Enough said.
Thank you.
Please take some action. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That completes the deputants for this afternoon, evening. It's evening. Okay. And we have a motion we will put on screen. Councillor Chang, I'll ask if you could please move that.
That the Budget Subcommittee receive the public presentations on the 2025 capital and operating budgets for information. And can I add, we'll see you tomorrow in North York or in Etobicoke.
Okay, I don't know if it'll make it in the record, but you can certainly add it. Okay, all those in favor? All those opposed, that carries. I will move adjournment. And yes, tomorrow there are opportunities at both in Etobicoke and in North York. Councillor Chang and I will see you in North York, but I think Deputy Mayor Morley, are you in Etobicoke? Etobicoke tomorrow. Okay, thank you, everybody. Have a good evening. Board members don't